Hello, my name is Kieran Hayes, and today we're going to be diving into a super interesting comparison between the Nikon Z6iii versus the Z7II. Two fantastic full-frame mirrorless cameras that are currently retailing for roughly around the same price. But they actually serve two very different types of photographers. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which one is right for you and for what you shoot. So come on, let's get into it and I'll tell you all about it. Now, I sadly bought both of these cameras myself, so this video is not sponsored by Nikon. And I've used both of them in my professional workflow for well over 3 years for the Z7II and for over 8 months for the Z6iii now. I just want to say I absolutely love and adore both of these cameras, and there's no hate here at all. It's just absolute facts. And a bit of my opinion too as well, of course. Looking at the camera bodies now first, and as you can see, there is very little difference between the two of them. The Z6iii is just that tiny bit taller, and it has a fractionally bigger grip, but there really is nothing to it. Build quality is very similar also, and both of these bodies are rated as Nikon professional bodies with pro-grade weather sealing. The Z6iii has a magnesium composite body, which is the same as the Z8, whereas the Z7II has a magnesium alloy body. Not a huge difference there, to be honest. Then when we spin the two cameras around, you'll see one of the first differences, and that is the Z6iii has this flippy out screen which you can turn around, backwards and forwards, tilt it up and down, do whatever you want with it. The Z7II has the more traditional pull-out screen, like you have in previous DSLR and mirrorless cameras. This is the sort of screen that some people will love and some people will hate, and everyone else will just use it and not even think about it. EVFs now, and this is where we have a huge difference. The Z6iii steps up with a 5.76 million dot OLED EVF that's super bright at 4000 nits, and it has a 120Hz refresh rate. By contrast, the Z7II's EVF is only 3.7 million dots, so it's a lot lower resolution and with a 60Hz refresh rate, and nowhere near as bright. So the extra resolution of the Z6iii's EVF and better refresh rate are really nice to have, but again, it's not a complete game changer. Let's just talk about weight. And there's practically nothing in it really, with the Z7II being the lightest at 615 grams and the Z6iii being 670 grams. It's really not worth talking about. It genuinely isn't. Looking at the more technical aspects of these cameras now, and what better place to start than the camera sensor, and this is where these cameras really do differ. The Nikon Z6iii has a partially stacked 24 megapixel sensor, and the Nikon Z7II has a 46 megapixel backside illuminated sensor. Now, what does partially stacked mean? Well, it means the top and bottom piece of the sensor is stacked with on-chip memory so it can read the sensor data faster, which for photography means we can get a faster burst speed, and with electronic shutter, we get very little rolling shutter then too. For video, it gives us, again, less rolling shutter and faster readout times, so we can now record in 6K 30p in RAW. The Z7II uses a backside illuminated sensor, which is the same type of sensor as used in the likes of the Nikon D850. So we all know how good that is. It does have a much slower readout time than the Z6iii's partially stacked sensor though. When it comes to resolution, the Z7II at 46 megapixels is the clear winner over the 24 megapixels of the Z6iii, as this is very handy for cropping in post-processing, so you can digitally zoom in a lot more on your subject, or for very large prints too, of course. In saying that, those 46 megapixel files do require a good bit more storage space and a faster computer for editing fluidly, so do remember that. Now, high ISO performance, and yes, this is going to touch a nerve with some people, but there isn't a huge difference here. But once you go over ISO 6400, you do start to see it slightly. Below that, it's not as noticeable really. So which one is better, you might be asking? The 24 megapixel Nikon Z6iii is fractionally cleaner, and even after downsampling the Z7II files to 24 megapixel images, there is still a slight advantage to the Z6iii files. So let's look at a few different test shots here now. Okay, so here's our test shot now at ISO 6400. Now, as you can see, I've just simply cropped the images with the Z7II on top and the Z6iii below, both at ISO 6400. When you look along the top of the battery, or even on the darker scenes, you can see there's quite a bit more noise on the Z7II. Now, it's not very bad, but it is noticeable. Jumping up then to ISO 12800, and you can see that noise increases a good bit more on the Z7II. And going to ISO 25600 now, you can see the Z6iii is still clearly better. Looking at dynamic range here now, and this is where the Z7II shines, as it has a good bit more dynamic range than the Z6iii. It is roughly 1 stop more dynamic range, which can make a big difference to your photography. Let's take a look at some test results here now again to see, can we really see that difference? Okay, so this is what our image looks like after I edited it, and this is what it looks like beforehand. Now, this is an extreme scenario where you'll be shooting something like a backlit subject, and that white light in the background is your sun. So please do remember, this is an extreme dynamic range test. And these are the results now, the Z7II on top and the Z6iii below. And as far as I'm concerned, you can quite clearly see there's a very big difference here in dynamic range. The Z6iii creates a lot more noise than the Z7II does in this scenario. But please do remember, this is not the normal scenario for most people. Crazily, the Z7II has the best dynamic range out of all the current Nikon mirrorless cameras, even including the Z8 and Z9 there. So already we can see for hybrid or video shooters, the Z6iii is looking like the clear winner with its internal RAW video recording. The Z7II though is looking very promising for landscape photography, product or architectural work with its higher resolution and increased dynamic range. So let's look at autofocus now, and this is where there is again a big difference. Nikon has made some big improvements with the Z6iii in terms of autofocus, as it has the newer X-Speed 7 processor, the same processor that's in the Z8 and Z9. And as a result, the Z6iii's autofocus is nearly every bit as good. The subject tracking is great in the Z6iii, as is the low-light autofocus for events, weddings, etc. And if you're shooting wildlife or sports, that extra autofocus speed is going to be incredibly handy. So yeah, again, this all points the Z7II more towards landscapes, product or architectural or work like that. Now, in saying that, I've also used my Z7II on loads of high-paced fashion shoots, and I've had no problem whatsoever with it. But the Z8 or the Z6iii's autofocus is just snappier. It's as simple as that. And honestly, for me, this is one of the biggest differences between the Z7II and the Z6iii. The Z6iii just feels quicker and more responsive, especially with moving subjects. So to sum up, the Z7II still has a reliable autofocus, but if you shoot sports, events, weddings, wildlife, the Z6iii is the one that keeps up with all the action. Just better. Now, this is a one you might miss, and again, this is a big selling point for the Z6iii, and that is, it has 8 stops of IBIS, or in-body image stabilization, which is huge, as the Z7II has only about 5 stops. Even the Z8 and Z9 have 5.5 stops, and they can't match the 8 stops that the Z6iii has. So that is absolutely amazing. And again, that is going to seriously help you in low light situations. Looking at burst mode specifications, the Z7II can do up to 10 frames per second, continuous shooting with AE, AF tracking in full resolution RAW files. And the Z6iii can do the same, but at a faster 14 frames per second. It can also do 20 frames per second in RAW, but only with electronic shutter, or faster frames again in JPEG with a DX crop. This camera can output 120 frames per second, and it also has pre-release capture too, of course. So in short, for very high-paced scenes, the Z6iii is going to be the better option here, giving you more frames to choose from. Hi, if you like my t-shirt, then get your own. Yes, you can actually buy one. Links for them in the description below with a special discount code also. Go on, you know you want to. So this section now is for the people interested in shooting video on either two of these cameras. The differences between these two cameras is absolutely massive, with the Z6iii video specs being 6K internal RAW, 4K at up to 120 frames per second, and Full HD at up to 240 frames per second. The faster sensor also gives us a lot less rolling shutter than two as well, of course. So Nikon Z6iii is basically Nikon's super affordable hybrid beast. It gives you the kind of video features that are normally reserved for flagship units. So you really are getting an incredible video camera for the money here. Now the Z7II can record 4K at up to 60p. It's good enough quality. It doesn't have 6K, no 4K 120, and there is more rolling shutter. This video is really meant for more for photographers who sometimes shoot video. So if you're building a YouTube channel, shooting weddings, or you're just deep into hybrid work, the Z6iii really and truly does destroy the Z7II here. It's as simple as that. So we're at the pros and cons stage here now, and the Z6iii Pros, just to sum it all up, are 6K RAW and 4K 120, fast autofocus, lower rolling shutter, great low light, better in-body image stabilization. It's a perfect hybrid camera. Its cons then are its lower resolution, and it might not suit landscape or studio shooters. It's newer, so it is a higher price in some regions. So the Z7II Pros it has beautiful high resolution 46 megapixel sensor. It captures amazing detail with brilliant dynamic range. It's perfect for landscapes, portraits, products, etc. It is also an incredibly reliable machine. I've had this for a long time now and used it in a lot of shoots, no problems whatsoever there. You can also pick it up secondhand really cheap because this has been around quite a while. The Z7II Cons then are weaker video features, slower burst performance than the Z6iii, lower IBIS than the Z6iii again, and don't forget those larger file sizes. So we're at the stage now where we can kind of clearly see, if you're deciding between the two of these cameras, which one is going to be right for you. We're going to start with the Z6iii first. If you're a wedding or an event photographer, this camera with its low light performance and its better autofocus, its hybrid functionality then too as well, this camera is the clear winner for you here, I would think. The same I would say for wildlife and sports. Higher frames per second, better low light, better subject tracking, and better autofocus. This camera is going to be the real winner for you. So looking at the Z7II then, and who should buy this? Now, me personally, I think this is one of the most underrated cameras in the Nikon mirrorless lineup, or the current lineup anyway as such. It has insane dynamic range, fantastic resolution. It is a complete workhorse of a camera. And at its current price, when I bought this camera, it was a lot more expensive. But the prices you can buy this camera for now, this is a pure bargain in my eyes. If you don't need ultra-modern autofocus, if you're more of a deliberate, slower shooter, shooting studio work, shooting landscapes, things like that, or even portrait sessions, this works perfectly. And the picture quality out of it is absolutely sensational. In all honesty, I love this camera. I have the Z6iii, I'm recording on the Z8 here now at the moment, and this is my Z7II. If I'm going out shooting landscapes, this goes in the bag every time. Even over the Z8, I will pick up this camera every single time. Now, if you're here at the end of the video and you're saying, Kieran, that was all brilliant, thanks very much for all the information, but I'm still none the wiser. I cannot decide between the two of these cameras because both of them have features I want. Then I have brilliant news for you. I have an incredibly simple solution for you. And that simple solution is, no, it's not buy both of them. Sorry, just in case you were getting worried there. Do not buy both of them. Go out and buy yourself a Nikon Z8. And no, it doesn't have to be a new Nikon Z8. You can buy yourself a very reasonably priced, good quality, second-hand Nikon Z8. That is going to give you the best of both of these cameras melted into the one, and you're going to absolutely love it. So you're welcome. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and see you out there, or see you in the next video.